So, picture this. A lone car winding its way down a quiet highway at dusk, headlights slicing through the fading light. Just ahead, there's a state line sign, marking the threshold between where someone's been and where they hope to go. It's a scene that, honestly, plays out thousands of times every single day across America. Folks pack up, say their goodbyes, and set off for what they hope is a better life. Maybe it's a new job, a lower cost of living, or just the promise of a different culture. For a lot of people, it's a one-way trip. But, for a surprising number, that road eventually circles back to where it all started. It's a phenomenon that kind of defies simple logic, a human current flowing really against the tide of what the statistics seem to say. We've all seen those headlines and charts showing mass departures from certain states, high taxes, brutal winters, not enough opportunity. The reasons are as varied as the people themselves. We track these movements, analyze the economic and social forces behind them, but what the data often misses is the second act, the quiet return. Why do so many people leave these states, swearing up and down they'll never look back, only to find themselves unpacking boxes in their old zip code a few years later? What is this invisible magnetic force that pulls them back? Tonight we're going to dig into this paradox. We're not just looking at numbers on a spreadsheet, we're exploring the deeply personal, often emotional reasons behind this boomerang effect. We'll journey through 10 specific states, each with its own unique story of leaving and returning. From the concrete canyons of New York to the sun-drenched coasts of California, we'll uncover the powerful, often unspoken connections that bind people to a place. This is the story of leaving home, and the surprising journey of coming back. There's, a certain romance to leaving New York. You tell yourself you're escaping the relentless pace, the crushing cost, and that feeling of being a small fish in an ocean-sized pond. You pack your bags for a quieter life, maybe somewhere your paycheck stretches a little further, where you can actually own a piece of land instead of just a sliver of sky. For generations, this has been the story. Young people arrive to make their mark, to chase a dream on Broadway or Wall Street. And then, once they've either made it or burned out, they leave for the suburbs, the Sun Belt, or just anywhere else. At first, honestly, the relief is intoxicating. The silence of a suburban night, the ease of parking, the simple novelty of having a backyard. You feel like you've made the smart move, the logical choice. You've traded chaos for comfort, ambition for affordability. Maybe you start a family, build a career, and for a while, it really feels like you've cracked the code. You tell your friends back in the city how much better it is, how you don't miss the subway, the noise, the sheer effort of it all. And you might even believe it, for a time. But then, something strange starts to happen. You start to miss the noise. You find yourself craving the energy, the serendipity of a crowded street. You miss the art, the theater, the feeling that you're at the center of the universe. The convenience you wanted so badly starts to feel like isolation. The quiet you craved becomes a void. You realize that the very things that drove you away were also the things that made you feel alive, that shaped who you are. The city, it turns out, has a way of getting under your skin, of becoming part of your identity. Suddenly, the reasons for returning become just as compelling as the reasons for leaving. Family ties, stretched thin by distance, start to pull you back. The cultural landscape you left behind now seems irreplaceable. You see photos of friends in Central Park or at your old neighborhood spot, and this powerful sense of nostalgia, of belonging, just washes over you. The idea of raising your own kids in the place that raised you, of sharing that vibrant, chaotic, beautiful world with them, starts to take root. So, the return journey begins. It's often quieter than the departure, less of a grand statement and more of a quiet admission. An admission that home isn't just about logic or finances. For so many New Yorkers, it's about a feeling, an energy, a state of mind you just can't replicate anywhere else. They come back not because they failed elsewhere, but because they succeeded in realizing that what they were searching for was what they'd left behind all along. They return for the culture, for the family, and for that undeniable, inescapable pull of the city itself. California now, that's the land of dreams, but for a lot of folks, it's a dream with a pretty hefty price tag. The story of leaving is, almost always, a financial one. You look at your paycheck, then at the median home price, and, the math just doesn't add up. The traffic is a soul-crushing daily grind. The taxes, the regulations, the competition for everything from a parking spot to a spot in a good school, it all piles up. So, you join the caravan heading east, to states like Texas, Arizona, or Idaho, lured by the promise of affordability and a simpler life. You buy a house that, back in the Bay Area, would have just been a down payment. You enjoy a commute that's measured in minutes, not hours. Life gets easier, more manageable. You tell yourself this is what success looks like: a balanced budget, a bigger home, less stress. You've escaped the California tax and found a place where your hard work seems to actually pay off. By all practical measures, you're better off. The Golden State, with its endless sunshine and endless expenses, becomes just a memory, a place you were lucky to escape. But you know, California has a way of haunting you. It's in those perfect 72-degree days you remember while scraping ice off your windshield in your new home. It's in the breathtaking beauty of a Big Sur coastline that no other mountain range can quite match. It's in the diversity of food, culture, and ideas that you suddenly realize you took for granted. The professional landscape feels different too. The innovation, the venture capital, the sheer scale of opportunity in tech, entertainment, and a dozen other industries. It's a siren song that's hard to ignore. You start to notice the trade-offs. The lower cost of living comes with fewer career opportunities, a less dynamic job market. The cultural scene might feel a decade behind. You find yourself scrolling through job postings back in Los Angeles or San Francisco, just to see what's out there. You talk to old colleagues who are working on the next big thing. The allure of being at the forefront, of being part of that innovative ecosystem, starts to outweigh the financial burdens you left behind. The golden handcuffs, you realize, were also golden opportunities. Ultimately, for a lot of people, the return is a calculated risk. They come back older, wiser, and usually with a better financial plan. Maybe they don't move back to the same expensive neighborhood, but they find a way to make it work, to be part of the California dream again. They return for the unmatched climate, the stunning natural beauty, and a job market that, for all its challenges, is still a global engine of innovation. They come back because, for them, California isn't just a place to live, it's the place to be. Texas is a state built really on cycles. The oil industry booms and people flock in from all over the country, chasing those high-paying jobs and the promise of prosperity. Then the bust comes, like it always does, and the tide reverses. U-Hauls head out of Houston and Midland, carrying families looking for stability somewhere else. This boom and bust rhythm has shaped the Texas migration story for a century. People don't leave because they dislike the state, but because the economic winds have shifted, and they have to follow the work. Beyond the oil fields, people leave for other reasons too. Maybe they're after the cultural offerings of the coasts, a different political climate, or just a landscape that isn't so relentlessly flat and hot. They move to Colorado for the mountains or to New York for the arts, thinking they're upgrading their lifestyle. They trade in cowboy boots for hiking boots, brisket for brie. They tell themselves they're expanding their horizons, leaving the familiar confines of the Lone Star State for a more diverse experience. But the pull of Texas is, honestly, formidable, and it's rooted in something deeper than just economics. It's rooted in family. Texas is a place where roots run deep, where generations often live within a short drive of each other. The Sunday barbecues, the high school football games, holidays surrounded by a sprawling network of aunts, uncles, and cousins. These are powerful anchors. When you're living 1,000 miles away, a phone call or a video chat just doesn't replace the feeling of being there, of being part of that tight-knit fabric. And then, the economic cycle turns again. A new tech hub pops up in Austin. The energy sector rebounds in Houston, or the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex creates thousands of jobs in logistics and finance. Suddenly, the economic reasons for leaving have vanished. The state that once seemed to be shrinking is now bursting with opportunity again. The call from a recruiter, or a tip from a family member about a new opening, becomes just too tempting to ignore. The path back home is now paved with both personal and professional incentives. So, they come back. They return not just for the job, but for the community. They come back for the lower cost of living they missed, for the pride in their state that is honestly just infectious. They return to be near aging parents, or to raise their kids surrounded by family. The return to Texas is often a return to a complete way of life. It's an acknowledgement that while the grass may seem greener elsewhere for a season, the roots are strongest, and the rebounds are greatest, right back home in Texas. The classic Florida story used to be a one-way ticket south. Folks from the Northeast and Midwest would spend their working years dreaming of retirement, and when the day finally came, they'd sell their homes, pack up their bags, and head for the warmth and, the golf courses of the Sunshine State. It was seen as the final destination, the reward at the end of a long career. But, a new chapter has been written in recent years, one where people leave Florida only to find themselves drawn back in. Why would anyone leave paradise? Well, for some retirees, the dream just doesn't quite match the reality. The heat and humidity, they can become oppressive, like all year round. The threat of hurricanes turns into a constant source of anxiety. And then, others find themselves missing their families, especially as grandchildren are born up north. They make that tough decision to move back, to be closer to their kids, trading those warm winters for the warmth of family. This halfback phenomenon, retirees moving halfway back to states like the Carolinas or Tennessee, is a well-documented trend. But it's not just retirees who leave. Younger folks, who maybe grew up in Florida, often leave in search of different career paths or, honestly, just to experience 4 distinct seasons. They head to major hubs like Atlanta, New York, or Chicago, looking for a faster pace, and what they see is greater opportunities. They leave behind the beach towns and sprawling suburbs of their youth for the density and dynamism of a major metropolis, believing that's where their future lies. The return trip, though, is often prompted by a shift in priorities. The former retirees who moved back north. They find that they miss the Florida community they had built. They miss the active lifestyle, the social clubs, and the friends who share their stage of life. They realize that while being near family is important, so is the daily quality of life that Florida offered. They might not move back full-time, but they become snowbirds, re-establishing their connection to the state and proving its pull is still, really strong. For the younger generation, the return is often driven by the very things they left behind. They get tired of the cold, the high cost of living, and the grind of the big city. With the rise of remote work, they realize they can have their career and the Florida lifestyle. They come back to be near their own aging parents, to raise their kids in a more relaxed environment, and to enjoy the climate they once took for granted. They return not to retire, but to live, rediscovering that the paradise they once wanted to escape is, in fact, an ideal place to call home. The narrative of leaving Illinois is, loud and clear, and it's often written right there in the tax code. For years, the state has been a leader in outmigration, with residents citing high property and income taxes as a primary reason for their departure. They pack up for states with a lighter tax burden, like Florida, Texas, or, neighboring Indiana and Wisconsin. It's a pragmatic decision, a move made with a calculator in hand. You see your potential savings, and the choice to leave the land of Lincoln just seems like simple common sense. The harsh Midwest winters are another powerful motivator. Every year, as those biting winds sweep off Lake Michigan and the snow piles up, thousands of residents decide they've had enough. They dream of sunnier, milder climates where they don't have to spend months bundled indoors or digging their cars out of snowdrifts. This annual exodus is almost a rite of passage for many who feel worn down by the long, gray season, seeking a permanent escape to a place where winter is, just a mild inconvenience. And yet, a surprising number of them come back. Why? Because for all its fiscal and meteorological challenges, Illinois, and specifically Chicago, casts a very long shadow. After living elsewhere, people start to miss the world-class architecture, the stunning lakefront, the vibrant neighborhoods, each with its own distinct character. They miss the food scene, from Michelin-starred restaurants to, honestly, the perfect Italian beef sandwich. They miss the cultural institutions, the music festivals, the sheer unapologetic energy of a truly great American city. The pull of roots is also incredibly strong. Illinois is a state of deep-seated communities, where families have lived in the same towns and neighborhoods for generations. Leaving means leaving behind a network of lifelong friends, family, and shared history that is just impossible to replicate. The desire to be present for family milestones, to raise children in the same environment you grew up in, to be part of that familiar community fabric. That often becomes a powerful gravitational force that pulls people back, sometimes against their better judgment. So, they return, often with a newfound appreciation for what they left behind. They might complain about the taxes and dread the winters, but they do it from a place of belonging. They come back for the magnetic pull of Chicago, a city that, for all its faults, remains a cultural and economic powerhouse. They return for the comfort of the familiar, for the deep-seated roots that bind them to the prairie soil. In the end, they discover that the balance sheet of life includes more than just tax rates. It includes the immeasurable value of home. The story of leaving Pennsylvania is, honestly, often a story of economic evolution. For decades, the state was an industrial titan built on steel, coal, and manufacturing. But as those industries declined, the jobs left, and so did the people. A generation of young Pennsylvanians grew up with the message that opportunity lay elsewhere. They were encouraged to go to college and then move to Washington, D.C., New York, or the Sun Belt to find the white-collar jobs that were, pretty scarce back home. Leaving felt like a necessary step for career advancement. You'd pack your bags after graduation from Penn State or Pitt, saying goodbye to the rolling hills and historic towns of your youth. You were heading for the big city, for a corporate ladder to climb. You were leaving behind a place that felt, to many, like it was stuck in the past, a place of shuttered factories and shrinking towns. The move was a symbol of ambition, a breaking away from the old and embracing the new. But a funny thing happens when you're away. Nostalgia begins to work its quiet magic. You start to miss the little things, the taste of a real Philly cheesesteak, the beauty of the fall foliage and the Poconos, the distinct down-to-earth character of the people. You find yourself reminiscing about Friday night high school football games or family trips to Hershey Park. The place you were so eager to escape starts to look different in the rearview mirror, imbued with a warmth and charm you just didn't fully appreciate when you were there. This pull of the past is powerfully reinforced by the pull of family. Pennsylvania is a state of strong, multi-generational family ties. As you get older, and your parents get older, the distance feels greater. The desire to have your children know their grandparents, to be part of holiday traditions, to have that built-in support system, well, that becomes a primary concern. The career you chased across the country suddenly seems less important than the family you left behind. And so, many find their way back. They return, often enabled by the rise of remote work or by finding new opportunities in Pennsylvania's growing healthcare and education sectors. They come back to the affordable cost of living, which allows them to buy a home and raise a family, in a way that seemed, honestly, impossible in the expensive coastal cities they moved to. They return not to a state in decline, but to a place they can help rebuild, bringing their skills and experience back home. They come back because they realize that the keystone of their life isn't a career, but the connection to their home state. For a long time, leaving Michigan felt like, well, an act of survival. The decline of the American auto industry, culminating in the Great Recession, hit the state like a body blow. Detroit, once the engine of the American dream, became a symbol of urban decay. Last one out of Detroit, turn off the lights wasn't just a joke. It was a reflection of a real and painful exodus. People left not because they wanted to, but because the jobs had vanished, and they had families to feed. They scattered across the country, looking for work and stability. The narrative of Michigan was one of loss. Young people, seeing little future in their hometowns, left for college and never looked back. They were drawn to cities like Chicago, Atlanta, and Denver, places that seemed to be growing while Michigan was shrinking. To stay felt like accepting a diminished future. To leave was to pursue the opportunities that their parents and grandparents once found so plentiful right there in the Great Lakes state. But you can't count Michigan out. A fierce, homegrown pride runs deep in the veins of its people, even those who have left. You can take the person out of Michigan, but you can't take the Michigan out of the person. They'll show you their home state on their hand, they'll defend Detroit's honor, and they'll carry a love for the stunning natural beauty of the state, the Great Lakes, the Upper Peninsula, the endless forests, wherever they go. This deep-seated identity is a powerful homing beacon. In recent years, that beacon has started flashing brighter. A quiet resurgence has been taking place. Detroit is undergoing a remarkable transformation, with a burgeoning tech scene, a vibrant arts community, and new life being breathed into its historic core. The auto industry, now focused on electric vehicles and autonomous technology, is innovating again. This comeback story, fueled by resilience and that trademark Michigan grit, has started to change the narrative from one of loss to one of rebirth. And that's bringing people home. They see the revitalization and feel a pull to be part of it. They see the incredibly affordable cost of living and realize they can have a quality of life, owning a home, enjoying the outdoors, that is out of reach in more expensive parts of the country. They return for the jobs, but also for the pride. They come back to be near family, to raise their kids as Michiganders, and to contribute to the renaissance of the state they never truly stopped calling home. The story of leaving Ohio is a familiar one throughout the Rust Belt. For decades, the loss of manufacturing jobs created a steady stream of out-migration. Entire communities, once thriving centers of industry, saw their economic foundations crumble. The message to the younger generation was often blunt: if you want to succeed, you have to leave. So they did. They left for the coast, for the Sun Belt, for anywhere that seemed to have more promise than the Buckeye State. The departure was often framed as an escape from what was perceived as a stagnant job market, a lack of dynamism, and the long gray winters. Young professionals sought the excitement and opportunity of bigger, more glamorous cities. They traded the comfortable, familiar rhythms of Ohio life for the fast-paced, competitive environments of places like New York, Los Angeles, or Washington, D.C. Leaving was a rite of passage for the ambitious. But the appeal of home has a way of reasserting itself. After years of paying exorbitant rent for a tiny apartment and dealing with the daily grind of a massive metropolis, the affordability of Ohio starts to look incredibly attractive. The idea of being able to own a home, have a yard, and live comfortably on a reasonable salary becomes a powerful lure. The brain drain that saw so many educated young people leave begins to reverse, becoming a brain gain as they return. This return is fueled by more than just economics. Ohio cities have been quietly reinventing themselves. Columbus has become a vibrant and growing tech and business hub. Cleveland has leveraged its world-class healthcare and cultural institutions to create a new identity. Cincinnati's historic neighborhoods, like Over the Rhine, have undergone stunning revitalizations, becoming trendy destinations for food and entertainment. The state people left is not the same state they are returning to, so they come back. They come back for the jobs in growing sectors like healthcare, insurance, and logistics. They come back for the ability to afford a life that felt out of reach elsewhere. But most importantly, they come back for the sense of community and the quality of life. They return to be close to family, to enjoy the friendly, unpretentious culture, and to find a comfortable place to put down roots. They discover that the heart of it all isn't just a slogan, it's a description of a life that is balanced, affordable, and deeply fulfilling. For a long time, Georgia, and specifically Atlanta, was the destination. It was the capital of the New South, a magnet for people from all over the country seeking jobs and opportunity. But success brought its own set of problems. The infamous Atlanta traffic became a national punchline. Urban sprawl pushed commutes to unbearable lengths. The cost of living in desirable neighborhoods began to climb. For many, the dream soured, and they began to look for an exit. People started leaving the metro area for smaller southern cities, or even for states further afield. They were tired of the congestion, the feeling of being stuck in a concrete jungle. Some who had moved to Georgia for a job were transferred elsewhere, continuing their corporate journey. Others, native Georgians, left in search of a different experience, perhaps the urban density of the Northeast or the outdoor lifestyle of the West. They left seeking relief from the very growth that had once drawn them in. But Georgia's roots have a powerful hold. There's a unique cultural blend in the state, a mix of deep Southern tradition and modern international dynamism. It's a place where you can find sweet tea and collard greens alongside a world-class global business hub. This unique identity creates a strong sense of place. People who leave often find themselves missing the warmth, not just of the climate, but of the culture. They miss the politeness, the slower pace of life that exists just outside the city limits, and the deep-seated sense of community. The economic engine of Atlanta also continues to roar, constantly creating new reasons to return. The city has become a major hub for the film industry, tech startups, and corporate headquarters. This constant churn of opportunity means that even if you left for a job, a better one might just open up back in Georgia a few years later. The professional network you built there remains valuable, and the call to come back often comes with a significant career incentive. So they come crawling back. They return for family, drawn back to the network of relatives and the familiar comfort of home. They come back for the booming job market, finding that Atlanta's opportunities are hard to match, and they come back for the lifestyle, perhaps choosing to live in a smaller town, within driving distance of the city, finding a better balance than the one they left. They realize that the Peach State offers a unique combination of southern charm and economic horsepower that is difficult to find anywhere else. The story of leaving North Carolina is often one of youthful ambition. For those who grow up in the state's smaller towns or even its mid-sized cities, the lure of the big city can be irresistible. They see places like New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles as the epicenters of culture and career, the places where you go to make it big. They leave the rolling hills of the Piedmont and the shores of the Outer Banks behind, seeking a faster, more exciting life. This journey is often seen as a necessary step on the ladder of success. You go away to get a top-tier education or to get your foot in the door of a competitive industry. North Carolina, for all its charms, can feel a bit quiet, a bit slow for a young person with grand ambitions. The departure is a quest for experience, for a broader perspective, for the kind of hustle and bustle that you can only find in a global metropolis. But as the years pass, priorities change. The grind of big city life begins to wear thin. The high cost of living makes saving and planning for a future feel like an uphill battle. The daily stress, the lack of space, and the distance from nature start to take their toll. You begin to dream of a different pace of life, one that you remember from your youth in North Carolina. The quality of life you once saw as slow now looks like peaceful. The state they remember has also been changing. The Research Triangle Park has grown into one of the nation's premier hubs for technology, research, and medicine. Charlotte has solidified its status as a major financial center. This economic growth has created a wealth of high-paying professional jobs, eliminating the need to be in a mega city to have a fulfilling career. The career opportunities they once left to find are now plentiful back home. This combination of a shifting personal mindset and a growing local economy creates the perfect conditions for a homecoming. People return to North Carolina for a life of balance. They come back for the affordable housing, the excellent schools, and the easy access to both the mountains and the sea. They return to be close to family, to raise their own children in that friendly, community-oriented environment. They discover that the quality of life they were searching for all along was waiting for them. right back in the Tar Heel state. The data tells one story. A story of taxes, job markets, and cost of living. It's a story of rational choices, of people moving like pieces on a chessboard, seeking a better position. But the stories we've heard tonight reveal a deeper truth. The decision to leave is often logical, but the decision to return is almost always emotional. It's a journey that takes people away from home, only to teach them what home truly means. It's a boomerang powered not by economics, but by memory, by family, by a sense of belonging that can't be quantified on a spreadsheet. From the cultural heartbeat of New York to the resilient pride of Michigan, from the Golden Coast of California to the southern charm of Georgia, we see a common thread. The very things that sometimes drive us away, the intensity, the history, the deep-rooted culture, are often the same things that call us back. We leave seeking something new, but we often return seeking something real, something that has been a part of us all along. It's a testament to the idea that our roots have a gravity all their own, a quiet but persistent tug on our hearts. In the end, home is more than a place. It's a pull we can't always explain. It's the landscape that shaped our childhood, the community that knows our name, the family that forms our foundation. It's the feeling, after years away, of a key fitting a familiar lock. It's the profound, undeniable realization that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. And for the millions who make this journey back, it's the final welcome stop on a long road.